Okay, so hi everyone, welcome to the Change to Now design series, and we are here today to talk about the Team Canvas. So it's probably one of the first design tools you're going to see on your list of tasks to do. And why are we doing this? So a Team Canvas allows us, as we are teams of 3 to 5 maybe, to get to know each other. We all come in with different backgrounds, with different skill sets, values, and even what we are hoping to get out of this placement or through this process. So it gets us to get to know each other. It gets us to set some personal goals, highlight some strengths that we bring into a team, and what we really like to work towards as we move through the CTN journey. How does this relate to your journey? So your journey on CTN is all about you finding your voice in a world of change making. It is also a way for you to be able to work with a community partner or with a community project towards the sustainable development goals that allows us to maybe identify and work some solutions into our communities. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about how to kind of navigate through this tool and set it up for success. So what you'd like to try and do first is kind of identify, if you're even using Post-it notes or markers, to just identify a color for yourself so then we kind of know where you kind of exist on this board. Have a color, and then you're going to start with your name, of course, however you would like to be addressed by your team and your teammates, and kind of the role that you would like to play within the team. So this is all about also bringing about your communication and discussion kind of skills into the scenario. So you might come back to the role setting after you've gone through all of the other individual sections, and then say, you know what, I think I'm kind of the researcher on the team, or I am the creative person on the team, so I might bring in those skills. So we can come back to the roles in a minute. All right. So after you've completed your names, you can come into the personal goals setting. Here you want to kind of identify things that you really want to build for yourself. So this could be something to do with time management, to do with listening skills, could be even with understanding empathy and how to apply that in your daily life. So list some of those up there, and then that's probably going to give you an indication as to what some common goals are for your team. So as a team, you can start pulling in, hey, a couple of us have these time management things, so maybe that becomes a common goal. Like, how do you organize yourself as a team, especially if you're working in a hybrid situation? How do you kind of start? Maybe communication is an element, so some common goals could be around what are some elements that we can bring in to better our communication. So think about those things that can come through. That's probably going to lead you into your values. So values are really important because we all come in with different value sets, and that's great. So this allows you to discuss as a team what your values are in terms of respect, in terms of what you'd want to achieve as a team. For example, to improve the community by being able to improve parts of yourself too. It could be something to do with thinking about something or the way you think about something. So you'd want to kind of keep these as guiding principles so that when you do run into a problem as a team, and you probably will, it's one of the more harder things to do when you're working on a project. You'd want to come back to these values and say, hey, you know, we put these down here, we've listed these down, can we revisit it and ask ourselves why we're running into these problems later on. So this is what we call an evolving tool. You will not keep this away. This has to be front and center into all of the work that you are doing as you go through your journey. From the values, you're going to come into your needs and expectations. So what does each of us need to be successful? So for example, Abby might need kind of more consideration more consideration on time. Maybe she just needs more time to do her work, or more time to be able to get through some of her work. So she can list that down there. Maybe Mike might need more awareness of his team members to know that he is going through a difficult time in his life, maybe. And what that might entail. So what kind of support might Mike need from his team, and understanding for him to be able to go through this journey, but then also deal with what he needs to work through. So here's where you kind of put in your needs, because this keeps us kind of at bay at, oh, maybe during this discussion I was a little forthcoming and I wasn't very empathetic to Mike. And then going back to his consideration here, you might take a step back and be able to reassess how you communicate with Mike on a certain day. So think about needs and expectations as a great way to just get to know your teammates a little better. Okay, and then we're moving into strengths and assets. So every team member is bringing in an abundance of wealth and information and values into this team and this space. So tell us what you're bringing in, because that is going to help us determine what your roles could be, and then what kind of activities you might be the go-to person for. So this could be things like, I know I'm a creative person, I bring a value of working with certain tools, such as Illustrator, or even tools like Canva. So that's an application that I can put and understand very well. Maybe Mike, or Julie rather, comes in with a level of analyzing things. She's able to observe and bring in a sensibility of how we look at something. So that's a strength. Maybe someone is a great listener in the team. They would put that in as a strength. So list as many as you can as a team. However, with the strengths, we also bring in some weaknesses. But the weaknesses are areas for growth. You really want to see this as a positive element in terms of how do we build these weaknesses into our strengths eventually through the journey. So Amit's weakness could be the fact that he's always late for things and never on time. So maybe that's something. So when you're having team meetings, or when he's supposed to show up, he might say that this is a weakness, but it's something that I can work on to become a strength or an asset at the end of my journey. Also, we could also see some obstacles, so things or risks that we might want to consider. So if you're working in an in-person situation, maybe you find that there are some risks around you that create some uncomfortability. You might want to open up about that and have a discussion and put that in there. If you're working in a virtual environment with your teams, there might be a situation where maybe you have a household that has a lot of noise, and you might just want to make your teammates aware that, hey, this is part of my life, and it's just part of the call. So you just might want to make them aware so that no one gets upset or angry or frustrated through the process while they know what you are coming in with, all right? So from there, we go into rules and activities. So rules are more like, I prefer using the word guidelines, because rules are quite hard, but guidelines help us create a discussion if something were to change, or if there was an impact that needed to result from something. So how do we communicate and keep everyone up to date, for example? So what methods of communication are we using? So the guideline is that, okay, every week we check in on the CTN messaging board. Every second day of our journey, we are resolving to updating something on the team lounge. So it gives us guidelines that all of us are participating in this journey of creating a solution towards a campaign. So start putting those elements in here. And this is something you might be stuck with right at the beginning, but as you're moving through each week of your campaign, this area might build up, because you'll probably see things that are coming up for you as a team, and then you're like, hey, we need a guideline on how to manage who's doing what. Sometimes team members feel like they're taking on too much. Some other members might kind of relax a little bit. So we might need some guidelines on how we're delivering our work together and how we're taking ownership of that work. So those are some elements that can come here. And once you've done all of these parts, you can come in and say, hey, these are my strengths. These are some of my personal goals. Maybe my role might be the researcher, or I might be the person that's able to organize things within the team. So I'm able to organize the schedules for us to meet up, or I'm able to organize the information that we're collecting as part of our development. So there could be more roles than one, so that's up to your team members to decide what that looks like. And finally, why are you here? This is for your team based on the brief that you're going to get. Why are you here as a collective body working towards something? So I'm not going to mention anything now, but that's for you to kind of decide what that's going to be. What is your purpose?